What's going on, everybody? Hope you are having a wonderful week. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. This week on the podcast, sat down with the one and only Louis the Child, Robby and Freddy. They are in album cycle mode and about to release a new album called The Sun Comes Up. This is their fourth album, starting out with Black Marble, Here for Now, and then Candy, or that's in complete the wrong order, but switch it around. Candy, Here for Now, Black Marble. I love what these guys do. Their music kind of translates to two different worlds, hits the pop world, hits the dance world, and just like brings new sounds, brings new production to the scene. And I really love what they do. They write great pop songs and also great dance records. So discuss lots of things on process of the album, process of going through the industry and navigating the industry and kind of being in the industry for a long time, signing to major record labels, and just working together as a duo. So without further ado, Louis the Child. Robby, Freddy, how's it going, lads?
Going great.
Doing well.
Good. That's what I like to hear. Whereabouts in the world are you?
Rob's in Chicago. He just went to Lala, and I'm in Europe. I'm in Siena. Just had a wedding for a friend last night.
Nice.
So I'm in Europe. I'm out in Europe.
How's the hangover?
He's in Europe.
The hangover is not too bad. I like natural wine. I drink a lot of natural wine, and I just don't get hangovers. So
is that actual true, or is it just an excuse you tell yourself?
It's not like it's not a perfect fix, but it's definitely better because of like less sulfites and certain things in the wine.
Fair. I don't drink, so I've never tried natural wine. I cannot stand the taste of wine. I wish I liked it. I wish I liked it.
It tastes completely different. Natural wine compared to like traditional wine. It's a little bit more like sour beer, more like kombucha kind of vibe.
Yeah,
a little bit more flavor. Yeah.
How was Lollapalooza? Were you playing?
No, I just went for fun.
Sick.
My girlfriend had never been to Chicago in the summer, and we had been talking about going to Lollapalooza. And Freddie and I are from Chicago, so we kind of go like pretty much every year.
Nice.
Yeah, I had a blast. It was super fun. The weather was hot, but that's how it goes.
How do you guys think, or how do you feel when you go to a festival or go to a show as a non-performer, but you're experiencing the music? Can you actually get involved with it, or do you struggle?
I feel like I could still get very involved. I think it all depends on kind of how you approach it. Like, I still like to go out in the crowd and watch, shows from the crowd whenever I can and connect with like the fan in me. I feel like that's easy to do, especially at like a festival. It's fun to like walk around and be a part of the crowd with everyone else.
Totally. Is it a case?
No, it's a lot of fun. Sorry, I was going to say it's a lot of fun to. Oh, there's a lag. My bad.
There is a lag. Sorry, guys, for anybody listening. I don't tend to do it anymore, and that's not like an arrogant thing. I think I really struggle with the like, unless it's like live music, unless it's like a live band. For me, like going to see other DJs, unless they're like homies and we're all kind of hanging out, I just don't really do it anymore. Do you think it helps your career by doing that?
Definitely. I feel like if you don't know the other side of it, if you don't know what the fan experience is or know what you like as a fan, I feel like you can't. You're doing like a somewhat of a detriment to yourself in being able to put on a great show. Like I feel like when I'm at shows, I realize things like, oh, I really like how they waited this long before using lasers, or I liked that the intro was really long or really short, or I like the way that this person interacted with the crowd, or whatever it is. Like, you kind of realize these things that you might not realize if you weren't standing in the crowd, or if you were just watching something on YouTube or whatever.
Makes complete sense. Do you for me the process is actually trying to enjoy the moment, where I struggle with the well, hang on a minute, and this is like me completely being honest, it's like, why am I not playing up there? Or why, like, what how did that record get made? Or like, oh, what melody is that? Or what synth is that? And how did they do that? Rather than actually just like being in the moment and like genuinely really enjoying it. Is that ever an issue with you guys or not?
For me, that's sometimes an issue with like just listening to the music. But when I'm at a show, I feel like more like I'm in the crowd experience and go and grab a drink and hang with your friends and enjoying the music and the show. I feel like I can sink into it a little bit more at a live experience. But then when I'm like listening to like modern relevant music, I just find myself like in that competitive mindset of like, oh, how'd they get this done? How'd they, what was the thought process behind this? Kind of breaking it down in your head, which is stressful. It's just like makes you stressed.
Yeah, it's that saying, comparison is the thief of joy, but realistically, like,
right.
I've not met a single person in this industry or in life that doesn't compare themselves, right?
Yeah.
Facts.
No, it's uncomfortable. I don't like being in that headspace of like comparing, but you kind of have to. It just as a human, it's kind of what we do.
How do you kind of compare in a positive way? How do you kind of allow yourselves as artists, as a business, as friends, as two people that write music together? How do you kind of navigate your way through the comparison side of the industry?
I think it's just you look for what you like and what is inspiring you. And if, you don't like something, and then you don't like it, and, you just kind of feel pulled towards the stuff you do like, and that, what you're liking is always changing, and you just find something you like out of the kind of industry or what's going on right now. And, I feel like that way you're just kind of looking for the positive in new music and finding inspiration that connects with you.
So I guess in follow to that question, what are you liking about the industry right now?
There's a lot of variety and a lot of young, up and coming, talented producers and new people coming up that are really making some good stuff. And so it's cool to see a whole new wave of fresh producers and a bunch of cool music being made. Just a lot of emotional kind of vibey stuff going on right now. It's pretty cool.
Robby, what are you saying?
Just in general, I would say, I agree with Fred. I feel like right now there's always new people making really cool stuff, but I feel like especially right now, compared to maybe the last 4 or 5 years of electronic music, right now feels especially like really cool shit is being made and interesting sounds, and like Fred said, like a lot more emotion back into a lot of the music. And I also am really stoked on like kind of the shift in live performance, and kind of, I feel like we're in the era of like the pop-up and, artists doing shows in unconventional spaces, and almost like a reduction in the production quality of like, I feel like for a while we were so like the biggest stage with the biggest screen with the craziest visuals and the most everything. And now it almost feels like people are a little more in tune with like trying to connect with the artist and be in an interesting space and be close to the artist and feel this like sense of community, as opposed to like, let's see the biggest screen the world has ever put together with, the craziest visual.
Yeah.
Granted, that still exists. There's still artists that go insane with the production, and that's awesome. But I do think you see a lot more now than before of like people kind of want to just be in a cool place, like 5 feet from the DJ.
Yeah, totally. What do you think changed?
I feel like this
I think
kind of
potentially for me, I think it might potentially be like just the like TikTok space and like having videos of everything and like I don't know, you want to see the crowd environment and like, you know, the huge video wall doesn't necessarily translate to like the short form video content, but like catching like an atmosphere or like a mood or something like that just seems to be like working. And I think that's part of it is like trying to go with what's connecting on social media and stuff.
Do you think that comes from? Do you think that comes from an artist point of view, or do you think that comes from the fan point of view? Because I think that's the really interesting thing is like, are artists doing this because I think there's like two sides of it, right? You've got like two like ends of the spectrum. You've got like the Fred agains, right? And then you have like the Tale of Us, which do two completely different things, but work it both amazingly. Okay. So I guess like Freddy, like into what you said, into like, do you think that's purely based on artists going, okay, this is connecting really well on my socials and this is then helping sell other tickets or stream records? Or do you purely think that this is like, actually, no, let's just get closer to the fans. Let's build a community, which will then help longevity. Or is it just, or maybe I'm just overthinking it and it's going, you know what, this is just the vibe.
It's hard to say for sure, but I definitely think it might be a mixture of the two of like partially like, you know, oh, that sounds like fun to be in like more of an environment like that. And then also just like, oh, this seems to be like what's connecting right now. So let's do that. Like a little bit of everything, I would think. Rob, what do you think?
Part of me wonders if like, I mean, I feel like this sort of, you know, pop-up era really happened after the pandemic. And I wonder if part of it is like people all wanting to be closer, more connected after we weren't able to be together at all, really for whatever, a year and a half or so. And also I wonder too if like, you know, the sort of trend of DJs going and doing these pandemic performances in all these interesting places, you know, I feel like a lot of DJs went and did these, you know, online festivals or just went out and filmed performances in like interesting places, maybe piqued the interest of people of like, okay, where out, like we've kind of seen the artist perform in these venues for years, but now throughout the pandemic, they showed us like they can pull up to this cool random spot in the city and do a performance. Like I kind of want to go there and see this in real life now.
I totally agree. I think it's also that like the almost the death of clubs in the last 5, like even pre-COVID, right? Like festivals have taken over the scene, or big clubs have taken over, right? Like let's just look at New York, for example, right? Before Brooklyn Mirage, you had like a handful of insane clubs that were just like really growing the scene of what New York was. And I'm not just kind of saying Brooklyn Mirage has ruined the scene, because it hasn't. It's elevated in certain ways, but I think when you're a small club, you kind of lose that community. And I think festivals then carry on and do that when you can offer somebody a ticket for $200 and they can see 20 of their favorite acts, to a ticket being, let's say, $60-$70 and you only see one of your favorite acts. Value for money, a festival's worth way more valuable when it comes to fans. And also I think that then when you don't have club culture, the newer generations aren't experiencing like really intimate shows, which we all used to have in clubs. And don't get me wrong, there's some amazing clubs out in the world that still give you that, but it just feels like most clubs are like 1,000 cap plus even like 700 cap, you don't really get those like small rooms anymore, purely because it costs so much to run a venue nowadays, and DJ fees are through the roof, and I think, do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I don't run a venue, but I would assume it probably. I haven't heard anyone tell me that running a venue is a good business idea. So.
What's your thoughts on the whole festival situation, especially in America? Like, there's new festivals popping up left, right, and center. Do you think it's a good thing for the scene, or do you not?
I think getting music to more people is always a good thing to me. Like, giving more people the opportunity to experience live music and get that escape, I always think is a good thing. I do think there's a lot of festivals, you know, and they're not all gonna be able to last. You know, we can't have a million of them and expect people to always pull up. But I do think it's good, especially when you bring festivals to like some of these like smaller cities in the States and places where people don't get that type of culture as much, you know. Like we don't need another festival in Los Angeles that badly. No. But like, you know, getting a cool festival in like El Paso, Texas, I think is dope, you know.
El Paso is sick. Like I love playing there. It's random as hell. It's insane. Everybody I speak to like has the like best time in playing in El Paso.
It was a big surprise. I wasn't expecting it. We got there and played the show, and it just turned out so great. And we're like, the energy here is pretty wild.
Yeah, and I do wonder that, because I think like what we were saying about the clubs is like, there's genuinely like, let's use El Paso for an example. There's genuinely promoters in El Paso that are building culture, and I just wonder like, what other cities like are having that kind of we don't know about, because realistically, like, you're at a certain level of like headlining, right, and kind of the ability to play smaller cities and the ability to kind of go into these markets is really hard for promoters to work at, and also just like generally your schedule. I think it's like, and I think that's the issue with the festival, is that the festivals kind of put you at a benchmark. Now, I'm not saying just you guys, for like, I just mean the whole industry, puts you at a benchmark of like your fees and things like that, and then it do these D markets that you would never have heard of in your life, like, or would never even think about going. Like, is it even, do they miss out?
Maybe. I'm sure they definitely do miss out on a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I think the pop-ups will start bringing clubs back, personally. I think a lot more people will start making multi-use venues and kind of start turning around and going, okay, well, this person can pull 300 people on a Wednesday night in New York. Like, there's a way to build a business out of this on like a regular basis. I think it's really important for the culture.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about growing up in Chicago. Both of you are from Chicago. It's one of the birthplaces of house music, as we all know. How was it?
We loved it. We love Chicago. We like to have that deep like pride of being from Chicago. I don't know why. That's one of those cities where you have that, and especially like I personally grew up going to Lollapalooza, so like having that down, you know, in the center of the city, and so many different artists and different like sub genres of what's going on in music, just always coming through, and seeing everyone from like Kanye to Rusko and Caspa back in the day. And like, it's just been really special to be a part of a city that has that culture coming through, and it's a beautiful city too, like especially in the summer, you know, like summertime shy, just has that like magical feeling that just makes you feel connected to the world and want to go outside and enjoy the city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's pretty vibrant.
Yeah, I love Chicago. What made you leave?
Just the music industry.
Yeah.
But we'll be back.
Industry's only so big in Chicago, you know.
Yeah.
Especially for, I think, what we were trying to do with writing music. It made more sense to move out to LA and connect with the people out there. But I think we both want to like settle down in Chicago.
Is that the plan?
I don't see myself like
back.
raising my kids in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I get that. I think
LA, Chicago's.
No, I think that's the thing though, isn't it? It's like LA is like, it's the place if you want to work in music. There's like just nowhere else. It's the same in the UK. It's like London is the only place to kind of work in music, where if it comes to songwriting, sessions, etc., 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 it's like it's just nowhere else. And you can't really complain about it. It's like if you need to work, like yes, you can make it work a little bit, but if you really want to hustle and you really want to get in with the right rooms, LA and London is kind of the only two places to go.
True. But it also depends on the genre you're making too. Like if you're making pop music, it definitely makes sense to be in LA. But if you're kind of in one of the subgenres of bass music, you can really be anywhere, really.
Yeah, I think it just depends if you're writing top lines and want to be in rooms with pop writers and top liners, right? I think there's like a level of like, for years and years, like for me, even for example, was like just in this room, just by myself, like dragging samples off YouTube and kind of recording stuff into my mic and doing all of that. But there comes a point when you're like, oh, actually, I want to write some songs. Well, I'm going to have to, people aren't going to get on the train 3 hours to come to mine. I'm going to have to go to them. And it's similar to from Chicago to LA, right? It's like, well, actually, we need to get in the room with these people.
Mm-hmm. Totally. But there's always still options. Like you can make a bunch of beats and send it back to some writers wherever they are, and they can send it back. Like some of our first music that we made that was our original, like first original songs, like It's Strange was, send a pack of beats and then they write and then send, you get the song that way. So it's possible. So it's not impossible, but yeah, I definitely agree with you though.
I guess, yeah. How do you feel about that though? Now, like you've lived in LA, now you've been in rooms. Like obviously, you have to kind of do what to ends meet. Like at the beginning of your career, you can't always just move out to LA, right? It's not financially viable in a lot of situations. But like, do you prefer being in rooms, or do you prefer working on like on something that somebody sends you? How's the process for you guys?
Rob, I'll let you answer first.
Yeah, I feel like I personally prefer being in the room with someone and like starting from scratch, and I like that. I like the experience of writing a song from scratch with someone, and the memories that I get of like the moment that the spark kind of hits and working through things, and I feel like it. Yeah, that experience to me is really fun and interesting, and the hurdles that you jump through in the process of writing a great song. But then there are times where we get sent something and then Fred and I just lock in, and that's also a really cool experience. But I'd say to me the best experience is like Fred and I in the room with like a singer and maybe a writer, and us all doing the whole thing from the ground up.
I think there's something about the connection, the human connection, when you're in a room together with people it's unmatchable. And I think my view is even if the record that comes out of that day is absolutely fucking awful, you still have like a connection with that person that you've made in a relationship, and you never know like what that's going to turn into. Like you guys may get in the room 4 or 5 times, write something that's just not good, and then that 6th time is an absolute gem. And I think that's the most important thing for me, is like building relationships and kind of building friendships, really, because it's like it's a lonely industry. It's a really lonely industry, and I think being able to to kind of nurture relationships is so important nowadays.
Totally.
How do you guys work together? Like Rob, I know we briefly met on EDC Boat. Freddy, I don't think we actually met. Like it was probably like a brief fist bump, but like I've never really like delved into like your process of like working together as a duo.
Something we've been doing lately at Rob's house, his studio, is I'll plug my computer with my Ableton running through like the Apollo into his Ableton, so I can be doing stuff on my laptop and sending it into his, and either I'll bounce a group of stems and like make a framework of something in my computer and then send it to his, or I can just play it and then he'll record it into his Ableton. But generally it's like very free form, like everyone's doing something, and I'll be playing keys or drums or making the instrument parts, and he'll be arranging or adding a bass line or melody, or it's kind of not like you have to do this, I have to do this, but like kind of just freely kind of, okay, here's a melody, oh, here's some chords, do we like those, okay, next, like and we like to put a lot of ideas on the table and then strip away and then be like, okay, this one's really great, let's base this next section, let's make a new section based on just this one part that we made of the 20 pieces we just had. Okay, like start over, and kind of until you get at this thing that scratches that itch and feels just right.
How do you guys agree on everything? Because clearly you won't. We're human beings. Like that process of like working with somebody else, you're not always going to agree. But like, is there a period of like, no, he's fully in on this idea, like let's just roll with it? Like how does that work?
I feel like if Fred seems
you got it.
very excited. Oh yeah, if Fred seems very excited about something, and I'm a little like, I don't know, I'll follow his excitement, and see it through. And there's been times where that's happened, and I've been like, no, I don't know, and then 10 minutes later, I'm like, yo, this is fucking cool.
Yeah.
I think we both have a pretty good like understanding of like if the other one is really excited, like see it through, and don't like stop each other from something that they're excited about.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll throw a bunch of things on there and try a million things out. So if maybe one of us doesn't like it, we'll be like, I'll grab just the chords, make a new section with just the chords, and we'll try again and see which one we like more. And if we both agree, we'll probably agree on which which vibe is better, or which thing we like more most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So your 3 albums out so far, Candy, Here for Now, Black Marble. New albums coming out this year, called The Sun Comes Out.
Sun Comes
Up. Sorry,
man. Yeah, it's all good.
What's that process from like 2017 when Candy came out to now? How's that process changed for you guys? Is it purely okay, we have to write an album, let's get in the studio, start writing, or is it a urge of like, we're in the mood to write an album now, let's get going? And then once that's kind of clicked in your brain, do you give yourself time? Is it a case of deadlines? How does all of that work?
I feel like we're always creating stuff, so it's with kind of all the projects that we've put out, at least it's felt like, hey, we're just always making stuff, and then at a certain point we're like, maybe this feels like a project is being built, or we might set out to be like I think we kind of knew going into making this album, like, okay, we want to make another like proper body of work. And I think like coming out of like the pandemic, we didn't feel like we wanted to make another like body of work, and we were like, let's make some EPs and just start kind of peppering
Yeah.
little like pockets of songs that people, I feel like we didn't really have like crazy deadlines with like this one outside of just wanting to have it done and like out before we went on any sort of tour, because we're like notoriously like bad at getting that done. I feel like we're always like, we have a tour booked, like we really got to finish this stuff, and then so people can know the music when we go on tour. And then it's like whatever project we're making will come out like after the tour or like halfway through. We're like, fuck. Like, so this time we were like, let's definitely get it done before we like go and do shows, so people actually know the music before. Yeah, I feel like we didn't work with crazy deadlines this time or anything.
How many records do you write? Sorry, Freddie, go for it, man.
I was just gonna say, we'll usually have like 4 or 5, 6 tracks that kind of feel like they're in a similar pocket and that we like, and we're like, okay, maybe we make a project that feels like kind of like these, or like maybe expand upon what we're doing with these ones, but kind of the feeling is there, and then we'll start like, workshopping creative stuff, like the potential covers, or like what the vibe or aesthetic is, both sonically and visually. Is usually how we'll put together a project, kind of.
Are you writing like 50, 60 records to get your 10, 12, or are you like purely going, okay, this is track 1, this is track 2, like, okay, we need to write track 3? Like, how is that?
I think we cut down from like 80 tracks to like the 12 we have now. Yeah. I'm gonna look it up, get the real number.
We definitely do operate in kind of like okay, what's missing type feeling, of like, all right, we don't have like this type of vibe yet, or I really want something that feels more like this or that.
Yeah, it was about 80
or the
tracks.
other.
And when you're going through that process of like, oh, it's missing this or it's missing that, what is that this and that that's missing? Are you hearing that from influences? Are you kind of pulling that from old albums? Are you, like, where are you kind of getting that from?
It's just like,
a lot how we feel
like
ourselves.
It would. Yeah, it's like what we think is missing, just based on like emotion, or like, oh, do we need a really exciting moment, or do we need like more of a emotional kind of heartfelt moment, or like kind of just different things where you're like, okay, I don't feel like it's the full package. We might need, a little bit more XYZ, whatever your gut's telling you, kind of vibe.
Makes complete sense. Interscope record label, you've released, I believe, all your albums with them. Am I right in saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything since like 2017 has been with them.
Yeah,
just wow, that's a long time.
It's a long time. It's a really long time. So fair play. How obviously you enjoy working with them, and I'm really not here to kind of talk shit on major record labels or indie record labels, but I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on the record label kind of, it's just how record labels are nowadays compared to when you first started releasing, and kind of the pros and cons of where you feel artists that are signed to majors, artists that are signed to indies, and kind of in your experience in your career.
Yeah, I think first of all, the biggest thing I find with labels is like, it's all about the people that you're working with, and whether it really just with anything you do, actually, it's just, do the people that you're working with care, and do the people that you're working with want you to succeed, and do they get you? Do they understand what you're about? And when you give them these ideas, do they understand it, or do they have a desire to understand it and roll with it? I've definitely noticed, in the TikTokification of music, I think there's very much a record labels are very, very privy to that, and they want, they're a business and they want to see numbers that show them that, their business is going to do well, and they want, they're aware that so much of music nowadays that is popular or is, successful has some sort of, moment that happens on TikTok or some sort of interaction between people and notoriety on specifically that app. So I feel like that's a big change that I've noticed, that obviously, TikTok wasn't even around when we were signing to them. So that was never like a worry. That was still, when we signed to them, it was still, we were like sending all of our stuff to blogs and, posting a lot of stuff on SoundCloud. That's a big change I've noticed though.
So I guess, like, to kind of talk about the TikTokification of music, how do you guys, as, like, I'm not calling you old, but people that have been in the industry for a long time and are releasing records for a long time, how do you kind of flow with the industry? How do you go with it? Because I genuinely don't think any of us can say fuck TikTok and fuck social media, because it's such a powerful tool. But how do you guys, as people that have been releasing music, kind of invest into those kind of newer platforms?
I think you just figure out how you're going to interact on there and what you connect with within the app and how you use it, what type of stuff you like watching, what type of stuff you want to present to people and how you want to share yourself, and you roll with that. Yeah. But it is weird.
You kind of have to,
go ahead.
I was gonna say you kind of have to evolve with the times, especially in like the music industry, and whether you like TikTok or not, you kind of have to play the game sometimes. I mean, back in the day it was SoundCloud and Hype Machine and a few other things, and now I definitely feel like, I don't know, the fandom is a little bit different. Like, it's like hard to find like the pockets of like real like music like lovers, you know what I mean? It seems like a lot more just kind of like big things being shown at your face and you're like, look at how many likes this has, and like, oh wow, they're so big, and not like, I really connect with like this song, that's why I gave it a heart on Hype Machine and whatnot. Totally. It just feels a little bit less like about the music. Like, DJs can't just be good musicians. Like, you have to have a face and like a personality, and that's kind of like what people are looking for these days. It seems like more than the music. Like, the music's still important. Like, they want to have a good time when they go to your show and whatnot, but definitely seems more egotized. the fandom.
What do you think? Interesting. Like, back when we kind of first started, like, there was probably a long time where people had no idea what Fred and I looked like. Where like people probably knew a good amount of our songs and like had discovered us, but no clue what we looked like. Whereas I feel like now, like, my discovery of a new artist who I find on like TikTok or Instagram or something, it's like, I know what they look like the second that I hear their music for the first time, and that's, TikTok and Instagram are a big like discovery tool for artists now. But like, you got to have an interesting video or an interesting look to you for people to really
that's
remember.
Really interesting, because I think you're 100% right. And I think the crazy thing is none of us are talking about like the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, as discovery tools. It feels like they are tools for us to listen to music that we like already. And the Instagrams or just all social media is the discovery tool, which is absolutely crazy to think that our music discovery tools is social media, and it's purely based on what is popping off rather than because like it happens to me. Like I'll go on to my explore page. I don't really use TikTok, but I'll go onto my explore page on Instagram and see some like dude or girl make like DJ, and I'm like, I've never heard of them, and this person has like 1 million followers. Like, why have I not heard their music? Like, because in that time of like the SoundCloud era, the Beatport era, we would hear the music before and we would judge based on the music. And it would be, I love this record, it's a great record, or I don't love this record, it's not a good record in my opinion. I'm not going to worry about that person or not even going to kind of research that person. Where now it's like, holy shit, this person has 200,000 followers. This person's getting millions of views, and yet I've still never heard their music. It's very strange.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
But then how?
100%.
Yeah. But then how does that then affect releasing records for you guys? Or does it not?
Nowadays, at the end of the day, I don't think we let it too much. I don't know. We just kind of, at least the way I look at it is, if I love the song and I really, think it's doing what I want it to do, or it's like exactly how I want it to be, and I'm happy with it, I'll, put it out and let it do what it does. And, we'll put our best foot forward and trying to promote it and whatnot. But, as long as I think it's good, I'm happy to, to put it out and whatnot, but can't really control everything.
That's true. Yeah. It definitely doesn't impact the way that we make music either.
No.
I definitely am not in the studio thinking like, will this be the TikTok, this or that, thank God it hasn't interfered with the way that we're creating music.
That's super important, but has it affected the way you view the music industry? Has it affected the way you view your career?
I think any sort of, public display of, numbers is always going to impact the way that you look at yourself or look at others, or, the comparison thing that we were talking about earlier of like when you can see, how many times someone's music is being streamed, or how many times it's being this or that is being played, or the comments that people say, it's always going to invariably impact the way that you view yourself and view others. But I think you kind of just gotta, as long as you stay focused on what you're doing and your personal growth with things, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah. I guess also at the end of the day, you've got the amount of streaming you guys have done is unbelievable. Like you have a record that has done 250 million streams. Like that alone is kind of something that's most artists would dream of and will probably never achieve. How is there pressure for you guys of like, when knowing your records have been that successful in the past, is there pressure that you guys put on yourselves? Of course there's pressure from record labels and teams and everything like that. Like we all know that it's business, right? There's always going to be a level of pressure, but it's sometimes easy or not easy to kind of blank that out. But as you guys, as individuals, as artists, do you put pressure on yourselves with records once they're released? Do you enjoy releasing records?
I think anyone who, sees any sort of like even just a nibble of success wants to feel that feeling again and wants to outdo themselves, like any sort of like an athlete, like LeBron James goes out every night and he's definitely saying, I want to score more points than I did yesterday. I want to improve on this or that, or I want to do better. So I still love putting out music, and I love the mystery of, you never know what a record's going to do, whether that's numbers or just impacting people's lives or, connecting to people. And yeah, I think there's the pressure you put on yourself, but that's just like your desire to keep outdoing yourself.
I'd say there's general day-to-day pressure, and you're like, you want to keep it up, but like none of our bigger songs have been made around like an emotion of pressure, or like have been, that's never been put into it. It's always just been like free flowing creativity and trying to capture a mood, and so I try not to overthink and over put pressure, and just kind of, have fun and see where it goes. And we're always just making a million different types of styles, and just, you land on one that really feels like it connects, and you do your best to promote it. But it's like, you never know how it's going to be perceived, and you just got to keep the ball moving.
There's something beautiful about that, though, is the unknowing of this industry, right? Is like you can literally be writing a record with your best friend, and 6 months later it be the biggest record ever. And
totally,
there's something so scary about that, and also so amazing at the same time, because I think it's like you just never know. Although sometimes I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but the records that you think are going to do well never do well, and the records you think are going to be terrible do the best.
Yeah,
I also love that. Go ahead, Fred.
I was just gonna say, no one knows, whether it's the label or you. No one knows what's going to do the best as much as they think they know.
Yeah, definitely.
Facts.
How is that A&R process for you guys when it comes to the rest of the team? I recently just wrote an album, which is my first one, and there was no like external A&R in, apart from myself and like 2 other people. And I purposely made it before I signed it to a record label. But obviously you're signed to Interscope. You have a great relationship, from what I gather. I could be wrong, but you have a relationship with them. What is that A&R process nowadays like?
There's not too many cooks in the kitchen, which is good. And I feel like we all agree, on a lot of stuff. Like, I feel like when there's a song that, we think is really good, like everyone else seems to agree for the most part. Or at least if we're very like, yo, we really want to put this thing out, they're not super controlling or like making us feel like we can't do the things that we want to do. I will say one interesting thing that was sort of a pushback from them was like, before making The Sun Comes Up, we made this whole like hip hop project that was like all like, kind of early Kanye sounding, like soul sample type stuff. We were rapping on some of it, like was like so like not what you expect from us, like very not electronic. And we like spent probably like a whole month like making this whole project, and we played it for them, and they were kind of like, I don't know, like I don't know if like you guys are like a dance act, like I don't know if this is gonna really like land well. And we were like, shit, okay, well maybe let's try making some other stuff for a little and see how that goes. But I feel like that's been, since working with them, like the one major like kind of like pushback that we had from them. But I think, are you ever going to put it out without making that? I don't know, those songs still exist. I would still like for some of them to come out, but it is something though that I remember being like kind of bummed in the moment, but I do look back now and I'm like, like I'm happy that happened, because this project that we're about to put out like wouldn't exist if we hadn't felt that pushback and been like, all right, let's try and make some like more dancey stuff for a little bit and see where that takes us.
Yeah, totally. I think there's always going to be records on all of our hard drives that are just the lost files that somebody, maybe when we're not even around, that will just hear back and go, why the hell did this record never get released? But that's the beautiful thing about making music, right?
That's like why we started doing those like candy beat tapes and stuff, was to like give a place for those records to live. Stuff that like would never come out.
Yeah, I think it's important, right? I think especially having the ability to just like release records. Like there doesn't have to be, if the whole goal is just to release them and just kind of let the world have this music, and there's no pressure of like, this has to do well, this has to be a successful record, and as long as everyone's expectations are kind of at the same level, I think there's something beautiful about that. And I think it really takes the business out of the art, which sometimes I think is needed.
Totally. I mean, I look to the jazz greats, and they'll have like 100 albums of like their career albums, and it's like they're just experimenting and doing a million different things, and that's kind of what's cool about it. Like their journey through, jazz and evolving jazz in their own way. And it's not just, Frank Sinatra singing "Fly Me to the Moon."
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, though, isn't it? Because I think even like look at the Beatles, even look at Elvis Presley. Some of the like biggest artists in the world have, like, I think the Beatles and Elvis were releasing 2 albums a year. Realistically, we all know maybe 10 records from them, but they have just released obscene amounts of music, and not everything's done well. Obviously, everything is done well in a comparison to what we're at, level of what we're at. But I think in the grand scheme of things, like to what they're used to, maybe 10 hits out of 1,000 records. Like, I think it's a case of maybe not overthinking it and just releasing records.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, I like that.
When's The Sun Comes Up out? Do we not have a date yet?
I think it's September 20th now. The date, The date keeps getting moved around for a while.
Always.
For a while, I think now it's like it is done. For a while, it was getting moved around so much because we had this one sample that like couldn't get cleared. It's funny though. This is kind of interesting. The song, it's called "Wonderful," and it's on the project. We have like it had 3 different samples in it. And one of them was like a Curtis Mayfield sample, and we originally thought like that one's just not going to clear. Like no way. Cleared super easily, and like we were like sweet. And then there was another sample that we used by this artist named Frex, and that one we got like the publishing side cleared but couldn't get the master side, so we had to get it resung and like replayed and whatnot. But then that took a little while, but then that finally went through. And then there was this one like vocal sample from our A&R had sent us like a pack of just like, here's like a bunch of acapellas that have just been like sitting around for a while that I have, like, because sometimes you find like a really cool little piece in something random, or it just gives you something to create. And Fred had like taken a 5-word like little thing from one of these vocals, and we used that in the song. And for the longest time, like it wasn't like labeled super well. It was, like female, this BPM or whatever. And we couldn't find out who it was. Like we were like, we don't know who this is. And at a certain point we were almost like, well, I guess we'll just like, we could probably just put it out. And then at like the last second, someone at some publishing company or something ran it through their system and found out it was like a old Nicole Scherzinger, like,
oh wow,
song, like unreleased song of hers from 5 years ago or something. So then we had to go through the process of trying to clear that, even just the publishing side of clearing it, because we got someone to re-sing it, and we were like, cool, we can just clear the writer's side of it. And then the the publishers didn't know. They were like, we can't figure out who else wrote this with her. So we can't even like really clear it until we figure out who else wrote it with her. And after a while, they were like, we just can't figure it out. Like we don't know how to find out who else was there with her writing it. So we ended up just taking that sample out. But it was like such a weird,
Jesus.
Or kind of like of the like 3 samples, like we thought the one that we thought was going to be the hardest to even like clear was like the easiest, and the one in the tiniest little 5-word thing was like held up shit for like months.
That's the worst. My manager was like, when I told him I was writing an album, he like, it's the one thing he said to me. He was like, dude, just no samples, please. Like, just try and keep it completely sample free.
Or just don't tell him. Just be like, this is from Splice.
Exactly. But I did a remix for somebody, and like I sampled like a drum loop from somewhere, but I sampled it from like, this isn't on my album, this was a remix. And I sampled it from a sample pack, and then it came back that whoever had sampled that sample pack actually had never cleared the original sample. And it was like and I was like, are you serious? Like, it's just a nightmare. My thing is just like create everything from scratch now, because I've had such a nightmare with sample. I'm sure you guys definitely have, but it's just like, I just can't deal with that. I want it out rather than have to wait months and months and months to kind of be told no.
Yeah. I've been loving the AI stuff. You can like make your own samples now, and you own the rights to it with AI music.
Really? I've never gotten into the whole AI stuff. Is it like, what apps are you using?
There's one called Suno that's really good. It's either that one or there's one other one that I'm forgetting the name of that they used for BBL Drizzy, and it just, I mean, BBL Drizzy, it sounds like it's not a sample at all. Like, I mean, it is this. It doesn't sound AI. It sounds like an actual sample from like back in the day or something. But that's what it. Seeing the capabilities of it, I'm like, this is definitely the future for sure. Like the collaboration of AI and human production. It's gonna be cool.
I agree. I think the whole AI thing is interesting, and I think it's just going to be an amazing tool, because realistically, we still need artists. We still need a face to everything. We still need people kind of human connection and human interaction. And I'm all for AI kind of helping that come along. I don't think AI is going to necessarily take away anything. I think it's just going to add to it all.
No. I don't think the fully created any fully created AI songs, I don't think they're going to perform as well as like the collaborative working with the AI and elevating it to kind of the taste of the moment.
Totally agree. Right, lads. Album is out end of September. Let's just say that in case the date changes. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to listen to the album. So yeah, thank you for coming on, and if anyone's listening, go listen when it's out. Big love, guys.
Thanks for having us. It's been super fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well,
no worries. Big love. I'm sure I'll see you somewhere in some festival or rave. So look forward to catching up in person.
Let's get together sometime. Cool. Make some music or something.
I'd absolutely love to when I'm in LA. Let's get in the studio together. That'd be great.
That'd be great. Thanks again.
Cool. Peace. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Take care. And that's a wrap. Big love to the boys for coming on. Thanks for everybody to listening. Keep safe. Share it. Tell your friends about it. Tell your gran about it. Tell your parents about it. Hit subscribe. Do all the good shit. Love you lots. Till next time.